Evelyn Grace Carter had always held on to the magic of fairy tales. She believed in happily ever afters, in the kind of love that made ordinary days feel like poetry. Today was supposed to be one of those days, her birthday, and the night she believed Ryan Cooper, her husband of 3 years, would reaffirm the vows they made beneath a starlit sky. She imagined a toast, a tender kiss, maybe even whispered promises of forever. But life has a cruel way of shattering illusions. Under the glittering chandeliers of an upscale restaurant, surrounded by the gentle hum of laughter and clinking glasses, Evelyn waited, her heart swelling with hope. She was dressed in a delicate sapphire blue dress Ryan had once said brought out her eyes, her hair softly curled around her face. The evening should have been perfect. Instead, Ryan slid a crisp, legal envelope across the table. "I've met someone else," he said, his voice cold, stripped of warmth or regret. "It's over, Evelyn. Happy birthday." The words struck like a blade, sharp and merciless. Evelyn's hands trembled as she opened the envelope, her breath catching in her throat. The bold letters spelling divorce agreement blurred as tears gathered in her eyes. The world around her fell into a hush, the restaurant's once bright atmosphere now suffocating. Guests glanced her way, some pitying, others simply curious about the unfolding drama. Her lips quivered, desperate to form words, but nothing came. She wanted to scream, to ask why, but Ryan had already pushed his chair back, indifferent and heartless. Without another glance, he turned and walked away, leaving Evelyn with nothing but broken dreams and the unbearable weight of public humiliation. And then, something unexpected happened. Across the room, a pair of intense blue eyes locked onto hers. Liam Hayes, a young, discreet millionaire known for keeping his affairs private, had been seated at a business dinner nearby. The sight of Evelyn's tear-streaked face, the raw, unfiltered grief in her expression, stirred something deep within him. It wasn't just sympathy, it was recognition of loneliness, of betrayal, of wounds too fresh to hide. He couldn't look away. As Ryan exited into the night, Liam's gaze followed Evelyn as she slowly rose, her hands clutching the envelope, her face pale and broken. She stepped into the cold evening, the wind catching her hair, tears shimmering like tiny crystals against her skin. Liam's heart tightened. There was something about her, something that pulled at him, something he couldn't explain. She wasn't just another woman left behind. She was a storm of grief, courage, and beauty, and though he didn't know her name yet, he knew one thing. This wasn't the end of her story, and maybe it wasn't the end of his either. The cold night air bit at Evelyn's skin as she wandered aimlessly from the restaurant. The world around her nothing but a blur. The glittering city lights, once symbols of celebration and joy, now mocked her with their brightness. Her feet carried her to a small park just a block away, a quiet escape from the suffocating noise of disappointment. She sank onto a weathered bench beneath a bare, swaying tree, the cool metal stinging against her palms as she gripped the edge. Tears streamed down her cheeks, blurring her vision, her heart aching in a way she never imagined possible. How could Ryan do this? On her birthday, no less. The humiliation, the betrayal, and the emptiness clawed at her chest until it hurt to breathe. She pulled her knees up slightly, wrapping her arms around herself in a desperate attempt to hold together the pieces of her crumbling world. Unbeknownst to her, someone had followed. Liam Hayes, still shaken by what he had witnessed, found himself unable to stay seated. His business companion's words faded into the background the moment Evelyn had stepped out, her grief so raw it seemed to reach out and grab him by the heart. He wasn't the kind of man to meddle in strangers' affairs, but something about this felt different. It felt inevitable. His long strides brought him to the park, the shadows softening the sharp edges of the world. And there she was, sitting alone, her face buried in her hands, shoulders trembling. A woman too beautiful, too fragile in that moment to be left to her sorrow. Liam hesitated for a moment, then approached quietly, not wanting to startle her. In his hand, he held a simple white handkerchief, something his late mother had insisted a gentleman always carry. As he drew near, he knelt slightly, offering the cloth with a gentle, "Miss, are you all right?" Startled, Evelyn lifted her tear-streaked face, her red-rimmed eyes meeting his. For a moment, the world stilled. Those blue eyes, so piercing yet impossibly kind, held her in place. She blinked, unsure if she was hallucinating. A stranger? Here now? I... I'm fine, she whispered, though nothing about her looked fine. Liam gave a small, understanding smile, his voice low and soothing. It's okay not to be, he said, his hand still offering the handkerchief. Something in his presence calmed the storm raging inside her. She hesitated, then accepted the handkerchief, pressing it to her damp cheeks. For reasons he couldn't quite explain, Liam's heart clenched. The pain in her eyes, the quiet dignity she tried so hard to maintain. It was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. And then, driven by a force even he couldn't name, Liam knelt fully in front of her, his gaze never leaving hers. Without thinking, without weighing logic or consequence, he spoke. Will you marry me? The words hung between them, absurd and impossible. Evelyn's breath caught, her brows furrowing in disbelief. She stared at him, stunned. Was this some cruel joke? Another blow from a heartless world? What? What did you just say? She stammered, her voice shaking. I know it sounds crazy, Liam replied softly, his tone steady, unwavering. And I know you don't know me. But when I saw you tonight, something happened. I felt drawn to you, like fate brought me here for this moment. She shook her head in disbelief, confusion swirling with exhaustion. You don't even know me? Why would you? I don't need to know your story to see you're hurting, he cut in gently. And I can't explain it, but I feel like I was meant to find you tonight. His words weren't laced with pity. No, his eyes held something else. A fierce, quiet care. A sincerity she hadn't seen in a long time. Evelyn's chest ached, torn between heartbreak and bewilderment. People don't just offer to marry strangers, she whispered almost to herself. I'm not people, Liam said with a sad smile. I'm a man who believes some things happen for a reason. I can't fix what's been broken for you tonight, but maybe I can be the one to help you heal. The intensity of his words sent a shiver through her. Who was this man? What kind of stranger spoke with such warmth, such conviction? And why did a tiny part of her want to believe him? Silence settled between them, broken only by the soft rustle of the wind in the trees. Evelyn stared at the man before her heart heavy and battered. She didn't know his name or what drove him to her side, but in his steady gaze she saw no malice, no hidden agenda, only quiet kindness. Liam held out his hand. I'm Liam, he said simply. A tear slipped down Evelyn's cheek as she looked at his hand, then into his eyes. Evelyn, she murmured. Their hands met, the warmth of his touch and unexpected comfort in the freezing night. For the first time that evening, Evelyn didn't feel entirely alone. The morning light streamed through Evelyn's apartment window, casting soft golden beams across the simple, tidy room. She had barely slept. Her thoughts raced through the events of the night before. The heartbreak, the stranger with kind eyes, and those impossible words. Will you marry me? Part of her had convinced herself it had been a strange, grief-induced dream. But when the doorbell rang mid-morning, and she opened it to find Liam Hayes standing there, flowers in hand, and that same gentle smile, reality came rushing back. Good morning, Evelyn, Liam greeted softly, holding out a bouquet of pale pink lilies and white roses. Evelyn blinked, unsure how to react. No man had ever shown up at her door like this, much less a stranger she'd met under such heartbreaking circumstances. Tentatively, she stepped aside, allowing him in. Her modest apartment was a sharp contrast to the luxury he was accustomed to. Faded furniture, thrift store decor, and framed memories lined the small space. But Liam didn't seem fazed. He took a seat on the couch, carefully placing the flowers on her coffee table. I wanted to see you, he began, his voice sincere. Not because I pity you. I need you to believe that. I don't feel sorry for you, Evelyn. Last night, I saw a woman I couldn't walk away from. She crossed her arms, still wary. So what is this then? Some kind of rescue mission? A billionaire's good deed for the week? Liam shook his head, his expression earnest. Number, this isn't about charity. It's about two broken people, maybe saving each other. His words hung in the air. Evelyn's heart, still raw from Ryan's betrayal, recoiled. She was terrified of being anyone's project, of being pitied. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I know enough," Liam replied. "I know what it feels like to be surrounded by people, yet still feel alone. I know what it's like to look perfect on the outside and be quietly breaking inside." That admission surprised her. She had assumed his life was flawless. Wealth, power, influence. But now she realized money didn't protect anyone from loneliness. "I've built this life," he continued, leaning forward, his blue eyes locking onto hers. "But I've never found real connection. Not the kind that's honest. People see my name, my bank account, not me. And when I saw you, you weren't pretending. You were real." Evelyn swallowed hard, her throat tight. The vulnerability in his words chipped away at the walls she'd built overnight. "So, what exactly are you asking for?" she managed. Liam took a breath. "I'm asking for a deal, or maybe it's destiny, a marriage. Not of obligation, but of companionship. No expectations, no pretending. Two people, figuring it out together." The idea was insane, Evelyn knew that. A practical woman would have laughed, sent him on his way. But in the space between her loneliness and his unexpected sincerity, something unfamiliar flickered. Hope. "And why would I agree to this?" she asked softly, not to challenge him, but to protect herself. Liam's voice was steady but filled with quiet emotion. "Because I think, in a strange, impossible way, you need someone to believe in you, and I need someone to remind me what real feels like." Evelyn stared at him, her mind spinning. After everything Ryan had done, could she even trust again? Even in this strange, undefined way? But there was something about Liam's honesty, about the way he didn't try to fix her, didn't try to claim her sorrow, just stood beside it. "I'll consider it," she finally said. "But if we do this, there's one condition." Liam straightened, intrigued. "Name it." "No lies," Evelyn said firmly. "No pretending. If this is going to be anything at all, it has to be honest, even if it hurts." A flicker of admiration lit his gaze. "Deal," he said quietly. "I can promise you that, Evelyn." For the first time in what felt like forever, Evelyn felt something loosen inside her. The smallest thread of trust pulling taut between them. And though neither of them knew it yet, in that small, sunlit room with a simple handshake over fresh flowers and raw hearts, something extraordinary had just begun. Time, as it often does, softened the sharp edges of Evelyn's pain. What had started as a strange, impulsive companionship with Liam slowly unraveled into something far more profound. As the days turned into weeks, their lives began to entwine in quiet, meaningful ways. Liam, true to his word, didn't rush her. He never pressured, never made her feel like a charity case. Instead, he opened up pieces of his world, inviting her in gently. One simple joy at a time. There were evenings spent by the still waters of his private lake, where the setting sun painted the sky in shades of violet and gold. They sat on the old wooden dock, shoes kicked off, feet dangling in the cool water, talking about everything and nothing. He showed her his countryside estate, not with grand tours or boasts, but with quiet walks through the fields, where wildflowers brushed against their hands and the wind carried the scent of earth and promise. Evelyn found herself breathing easier there, away from the noise of her old life, away from the ghost of a marriage that had suffocated her spirit. They shared simple things, late-night kitchen raids, where she teased him about his terrible taste in midnight snacks, and lazy afternoons sprawled beneath oak trees, watching clouds drift by like soft ships on a pale blue sea. Underneath it all, something undeniable was growing. Evelyn couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it shifted, when Liam's quiet strength became something she craved, when his easy humor started to pull laughter from places inside her she'd thought were long gone. It wasn't dramatic like in the movies. It was subtle, a slow, beautiful unraveling of defenses. And Liam? Liam was falling too. He was enchanted by her resilience, the way she carried grace even in her sadness, the way she found courage in vulnerability. He admired her stubborn independence, her refusal to be defined by her past, and the softness she revealed only when she felt safe. He realized he wasn't just offering her shelter from the storm, she was becoming his shelter too. They spent long hours beneath starlit skies, their conversations peeling away layers of old hurt. Liam told her of his lonely childhood in a house filled with riches but no warmth, and Evelyn spoke of the girl who once believed in fairy tales, only to have them shattered. It was during one of these quiet nights that Liam reached for her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. The simple touch made Evelyn's heart race in a way it hadn't in years. Neither of them said a word, but in that shared silence, something was understood. For the first time in forever, Evelyn began to feel something she thought had died: hope. But as life often proves, happiness rarely arrives without shadows. One gray morning, as rain traced patterns on the window, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a message she hadn't expected. Her heart clenched when she saw the name: Ryan. Curiosity battled dread as she opened it. The words made her stomach twist. "I made a mistake, Eve. I miss you. Can we talk?" It wasn't love in those words. She could sense it even in the cold pixels. It was desperation. Rumors had already reached her through mutual acquaintances. Ryan's shiny new relationship had crumbled. The woman he'd left her for had drained his accounts and left him humiliated. And now, like a coward, he wanted Evelyn back. Not because he missed her heart, not because he regretted the damage he'd done, but because regaining her would salvage his image, his fortune, his wounded ego. Evelyn's hands trembled as she stared at the screen. A part of her wanted to delete the message, pretend it hadn't come, but another part, the wounded, wary part, knew she couldn't ignore this ghost from her past. Would confronting him bring closure or chaos? She had built something fragile but beautiful with Liam, and she wasn't ready to lose it. But she also knew Ryan well enough to understand he wouldn't give up easily. The past was clawing its way back, and Evelyn was about to decide if she would face it or let it shatter what she was beginning to feel for real. For a brief, beautiful moment, Evelyn believed life was finally beginning to make sense. Liam's presence in her world had been like a sunrise after years of darkness. She laughed again, felt safe again, and began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her heart could heal. But shadows always linger at the edges of light. Ryan, unable to accept that Evelyn had slipped from his grasp, returned with a venom Evelyn wasn't prepared for. What began with one desperate message soon spiraled into something uglier. He started contacting mutual acquaintances, weaving lies and venomous stories about Liam, portraying him as a cold, manipulative billionaire who collected broken women like trophies. "He's using her," Ryan hissed to anyone who would listen. "Liam Hayes doesn't do love. He does business. Evelyn's just another investment to him, a way to polish his public image. It's all a game." Word reached Evelyn quickly. The whispers in social circles she'd long abandoned found her ears, bringing with them a cruel doubt. The words, though absurd, crawled beneath her skin because they came from someone who once knew her heart. For a moment, a dangerous, fragile moment, she questioned everything. Was Liam too perfect? Was it possible he, like Ryan, wore kindness as a mask for control? Evelyn's heart wavered, caught between old wounds and newfound hope. She avoided Liam's calls for a day, her chest tight with fear she couldn't name. But Liam was no fool. He noticed the shift immediately, the distance in her voice, the hesitance in her eyes. Yet he didn't grow angry. He didn't retreat into pride or demand answers. Instead, one evening, he arrived at her doorstep with nothing but his heart on his sleeve. The rain was soft, misting the city in a shimmering glow, when Liam stood before her. His blue eyes, usually calm and steady, shimmered with vulnerability. "I know what he's saying," Liam began quietly, his voice thick with unspoken ache. "And I won't defend myself with empty words." Evelyn swallowed hard, her defenses trembling. "I need you to know," he continued, stepping closer. I spent years surrounded by people who wanted me for what I owned, not who I was. Friends, women, even family. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that maybe love wasn't meant for men like me, that no one could ever see beyond the name, the wealth, the walls I built. His gaze held hers, steady and raw. And then, that night, your birthday, I saw you. I don't even know why I followed you out that door. But something about you, the honesty of your grief, it shattered something in me. And for the first time in years, I wanted more. Not for the headlines, not for appearances. For myself. Evelyn felt the knot in her chest loosen, tears stinging her eyes. I know this is fast, Eve. I know you've been hurt in ways I can't undo. But I swear to you, I'm not here to use you. I don't need saving. I just want to be with you. As you are. It was in that moment Evelyn understood something that had been quietly growing inside her. Ryan's words no longer held weight. The man who had broken her was a stranger now, desperate and cruel, while the man standing before her, whom she'd barely known weeks ago, had become her anchor in a storm she hadn't even realized she was still trapped in. The sincerity in Liam's voice, the pain in his confession, and the steady warmth of his presence spoke louder than Ryan's desperate lies ever could. She reached out, threading her fingers through his, feeling the steady pulse beneath his skin. I believe you, she whispered, her voice breaking on the words. I'm sorry I doubted it. I was scared. I know, Liam said softly, pulling her into his arms. But you don't have to be anymore. And in that embrace, Evelyn let herself believe in something again. Not the fragile, fairy tale love she once chased, but something deeper. Something real. Something built on shared brokenness, mutual respect, and the courage to begin again. Ryan's shadow would linger, but Evelyn was no longer standing alone. Just when Evelyn thought her fragile world had finally begun to steady, it shattered again. One evening, Liam vanished. No note, no call, no explanation. It was as though the man who had become her anchor, her quiet sanctuary, had dissolved into thin air. The calls went straight to voicemail. His office claimed he was away on urgent business. Even his trusted assistant could only offer a strained, rehearsed, Mr. Hayes is currently unavailable. At first, Evelyn told herself not to panic. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was something unavoidable. But days turned into a week, then two. Whispers filled the spaces Liam once occupied. Rumors claimed he'd jetted off to Europe, chasing a massive business deal, one so lucrative he might never come back. There were talks of old flames abroad, of powerful alliances, of life-changing opportunities that had lured him far from their quiet little world. Evelyn's heart cracked under the weight of uncertainty. Had he left her too? Was she foolish to believe a man like Liam Hayes, a millionaire with the world at his feet, would choose to stay with someone like her? Was she just a passing moment in his complicated life? Another heartbreak waiting to happen? Every night she stared at her phone, willing it to light up with his name. She'd replay the last words he spoke, the tenderness in his eyes, the promises whispered under starlit skies. Was it all a beautiful illusion? And then, on a rain-soaked Friday evening, weeks after his disappearance, there he was, standing outside her apartment door, soaked to the bone, hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled and travel-worn. Liam Hayes didn't look like the polished, untouchable millionaire the world knew. He looked human, exhausted, raw, and desperate. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Liam? Her voice cracked, trembling with equal parts hope and fear. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her, his piercing blue eyes heavy with 1,000 unspoken words. And then slowly, he stepped closer, reaching out as if afraid she might vanish if he touched her. I'm sorry, Liam murmured, voice rough from exhaustion. I wanted to call. I tried. But I had to handle this alone, to protect you. Evelyn's heart pounded as the storm outside echoed the chaos inside her chest. Protect me from what? Liam exhaled, dragging a hand through his rain-drenched hair. A scandal. One tied to my family. Old sins buried under layers of money and silence. Someone was threatening to drag my name, and anyone close to me, through the mud. I had to stop it before it touched you. If I had stayed or told you, they would have used you, Evelyn. Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes, blurring the lines of the man she thought she might have lost. All this time, she whispered, her voice breaking. I thought you left. I thought I would never leave you. Liam interrupted, a fierce tenderness in his voice. Not by choice, not after everything we've been through. Evelyn's walls, built from years of pain and betrayal, crumbled in that moment. The uncertainty, the ache, the sleepless nights, all of it dissolved as she stepped forward and threw her arms around him. He held her as if she were his lifeline, his safe place in a storm that had threatened to pull them both under. I missed you, she sobbed into his chest, her tears mixing with the rain on his skin. I missed you more than you'll ever know, Liam whispered, pressing a trembling kiss to the top of her head. It was then, in the quiet, tear-soaked space between broken hearts, that Evelyn understood. This wasn't a story of fragile, fleeting love. It wasn't about grand gestures or glittering promises. Their love was forged in pain, tested by storms, and proven in the moments when everything else crumbled. It was real, raw, and beautifully imperfect. And no rumor, no absence, no shadow from the past could take it away. The evening air carried a soft, almost magical stillness, the kind that made you believe in second chances. Liam had told Evelyn to meet him at the park, giving no hint of what lay ahead. As she stepped through the familiar path, memories flooded her. Memories of heartbreak, a whispered question, and the kind eyes of a stranger who had changed her life. But tonight, the park was different. Fairy lights hung delicately from the trees, twinkling like stars caught in branches. A narrow path lined with lanterns guided her steps. In the distance, a violinist played a tender, soulful melody that seemed to echo the beat of her heart. And there, by the old park bench where her life had once crumbled, stood Liam, dressed in a crisp suit, yet with the same soft, vulnerable expression he wore the night they met. Liam looked up as Evelyn approached. His blue eyes, the same ones that had once seen through her heartbreak, now shimmered with something deeper, something certain. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't that broken woman anymore. She was stronger now, braver, standing in the same place, but as a different person. And Liam wasn't a stranger anymore. He was her sanctuary, her beginning, her home. Without a word, Liam took a step forward, then another, until he was close enough to take her trembling hands in his. The music swelled around them, wrapping them in a world where only the two of them existed. I brought you here, Liam began softly, his voice steady but thick with emotion, because this is where everything changed for me. The night I saw you, I didn't understand it then, but I know it now. It wasn't impulse, it wasn't pity, it was fate pulling me to you. He sank to one knee, and for a moment Evelyn felt the world slow. From his pocket, he drew out a small, delicate ring, simple, elegant, with a single brilliant diamond that caught the light like a captured star. Evelyn Grace Carter, Liam said, his voice breaking just enough to make her eyes glisten. I don't want to be your savior. I don't want to fix you. I want to love you, as you are, for who you are. Every broken, beautiful, stubborn, incredible part of you. Not out of pity, not out of impulse, but out of love. Will you marry me? For real this time? Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, but these were not the tears of sorrow she'd shed before. These were tears of healing, of joy, of finally finding something she hadn't even realized she was searching for. A smile spread across her face, tender, bright, and utterly radiant. Yes, she whispered, her voice steady, sure and filled with emotion. Yes, Liam Hayes, 1,000 times yes. The violin's melody lifted into the night sky as Liam rose, slipping the ring onto her trembling finger. He pulled her into his arms, and under the canopy of lights, Evelyn felt something she hadn't in years. Peace, wholeness. The months that followed were filled with quiet, intimate moments. Not grand spectacles, but real, honest memories. Mornings spent laughing in the kitchen, evenings curled up on the porch, watching sunsets, arguments over silly things, and whispered apologies that meant everything. Their wedding was not a society affair. It was small, filled with those who had stood beside them, friends who had witnessed their journey from heartbreak to healing. There were no cameras, no glittering headlines, only love, laughter, and the promise of forever. As Evelyn stood in her simple, elegant dress, looking into Liam's tear-filled eyes as he vowed to cherish her for the rest of his days, she realized something profound. The worst day of her life, the birthday where she was left, humiliated and broken, was actually the day her life truly began. It wasn't the end. It was the beautiful, unexpected beginning of a love story neither of them saw coming. And Liam, once a lonely man hiding behind wealth, found not just a wife, but a partner, a best friend, and a kind of love he'd never believed was meant for him. Together, they didn't just fall in love. They built it, earned it, fought for it, and this time, it was forever.